I'm Jack Durkee, and I'm the Senior Associate with the Wilson Center's Polar Institute. Earlier this week, on March 14th, the Biden administration approved the Willow oil and gas drilling project from ConocoPhillips. This $7 billion project, located on Alaska's North Slope, is estimated to produce 576 million barrels of oil over 30 years and deliver up to $17 billion in revenue for federal, state, and local entities. The project has been deeply controversial, with deep divisions between supporters and those who oppose the development. Supporters point to jobs, income, and energy security benefits of the Willow project, while opponents are concerned about environmental protection, the risk of spills, and the project's contribution to climate change.
I would say Alaskans are divided into three camps. On the left, you've got people who are pretty heartbroken that the decision was approved. They think it locks the state into 30 years of more oil dependence, and they would like to transition to another economy, another industry, and that this just makes that harder in their view. Probably the larger group says, bring it on. Oil pays the bills in the state. They're proud of the environmental record of Arctic oil, and they say if not Willow, the oil would probably come from another country that has a worse record, looser regulations. And certainly a lot of people on the North Slope feel this way. Their local government and their communities would get about half of the royalties from the oil from Willow, and that can really sustain the region. Lastly, I think a lot of Alaskans are ambivalent. They see that the state is dependent on oil. They may not like it, but they don't see that changing anytime soon. And I get the feeling they'd rather we just quit talking about it.
The Willow project has bipartisan backing in Alaska, and the state's Republican senators Lisa Murkowski and Dan Sullivan, as well as the newly elected Democratic Representative Mary Peltola, all strongly urged President Biden to give his approval. We asked a few stakeholders about the significance of the approval and what their communities are saying. First, Nagruk Harcharek, president of the Voice of the Arctic Inupiat.
The approval is hugely significant for the people on the North Slope. You know, our economy up there is reliant on the resource development that has taken place since the 1970s. The North Slope Borough, through its incorporation, is able to tax the infrastructure and then reinvest those dollars into the communities to provide services for the community members, right? So water and sewer projects, housing projects, roads, education. They fund a large majority of the education system on the North Slope, police and fire protection, search and rescue. It funds research into the subsistence resources that we use. I think it's been a sense of relief initially, knowing that the future of our economy that supports currently our culture and our way of life is going to be able to continue at least for the next 30 years.
The World Wildlife Fund, or WWF, released a statement about the project's approval.
The World Wildlife Fund stated, the administration's decision to allow the Willow project to move forward risks adding millions of additional tons of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, making it more difficult for the U.S. to meet its commitments under the Paris Agreement. Instead of building new fossil fuel infrastructure, we need a just transition to renewable and sustainable economies in the Arctic, one that is powered by clean energy and prioritizes the needs of local communities preparing for a changing world. Steve McLean of the World Wildlife Fund added, we welcome the recent decision by the Biden administration to complete the withdrawal of the Beaufort Sea from offshore oil and gas leasing. We need an Arctic-wide network of protected and conserved areas that will help meet global commitments to protect biodiversity and limit climate change. This effort must be informed by local voices, ways of knowing, and needs.
We also asked Liz Ruskin, the Washington, D.C. correspondent of Alaska Public Media, about public opinion in Alaska.
I think one story we're not hearing enough about is what this means for the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. The pipeline, built in the 1970s, has been running at less than half of what it used to run at. And that's not good for the operation. The oil cools faster, there's more waxy buildup, and more oil would help it operate and improve its viability.
So, as you can hear, the Willow project elicits strong opinions across Alaska and across the United States. President Biden faced a tough decision, and it is not surprising that the administration paired with its approval of Willow the other protective measures, including putting the entire U.S. Arctic Ocean off limits to drilling. The Polar Institute will be closely watching this issue. Stay tuned.